Welcome to the deep dive. We're going to crack open this stack of sources you shared with us.
Yeah, ready to pull out the key stuff on new tech, global adoption, growth strategies.
Monetization, too. All drawing straight from the material provided.
Exactly. We're hitting, the fourth industrial revolution ecosystem, 4IR, right? AI, blockchain, crypto.
And crucially, where crypto is actually being adopted worldwide.
Our mission basically is to sift through it all, find those important nuggets.
Right. Help you get informed on these really complex, fast-moving topics without, drowning in information.
And speaking of these technologies, this deep dive is brought to you by blockchaincompany.info.
Yeah, they're the media platform behind this, and they're sponsored by the 4IR utility token and 4IR GPT.
Which is interesting timing because 4IR GPT is actually described in the sources as their sort of flagship platform.
An AI knowledge exchange, is that right? A
Yeah.
trading space.
Yeah, exactly. Built for this whole 4IR ecosystem.
And the idea is you can take your own knowledge, your insights, whatever your expertise is.
And start monetizing it today through something they're calling prompts of intelligence.
Okay, prompts of intelligence. We'll probably dig into that more.
For sure. And if you want to learn more about the whole setup, the sources point to 4irtoken.com.
And the platform itself is 4igpt.com, where you can sign up.
Right. And just a quick note from the source material. They mention that if you're, say, a startup or a company, and you're interested in getting your product or service featured, maybe even one of these spotlight deep dives.
Like this one.
Potentially, yeah. You can get in touch through their YouTube account or just directly via 4irgpt.com. It's apparently part of their overall model.
Okay, good to know. So let's unpack that model then. Starting with the core. This 4IR ecosystem, described in the sources,
Yeah.
heavily focused on 4IR GPT.
Right. So yeah, primarily positioned as this AI knowledge exchange and trading platform, the core idea really is turning what you know, your specialized knowledge.
Or unique insights.
Exactly. Into these tradable prompts of intelligence. How does the source say that actually works for, someone listening?
Well, it highlights a couple of main benefits, particularly thinking about creators.
Yeah.
For you, the listener, it's pitched as, start monetizing your expertise right now.
By structuring it into these prompts.
Right. And if you're already doing stuff on YouTube, say, the sources frame this as another potential income stream.
Okay, so you could attract, paying subscribers on 4IR GPT.
Yeah, by offering maybe deeper insights there that complement your free YouTube stuff. So boosting your total income.
And interestingly, the source also suggests that having a channel on 4iGPT could actually help your YouTube channel.
How so?
It could amplify it on their platform, maybe leading to more people discovering your content there and then, heading back to subscribe on YouTube, kind of a feedback loop.
Ah, interesting synergy. And there's a specific call to action in the sources too, right?
Yep. Sign up at 4igpt.com and you get 10 free credits.
To start your own prompt media channel. Sort of a low-risk way to try it out.
Exactly. Test out this whole knowledge monetization thing.
Okay. Now, what about the bigger picture, the growth strategy mentioned in the sources?
Right. So beyond individual creators, it involves providing these paid spotlights.
We mentioned those.
Yeah, but not just for crypto projects. It's across the board. AI, blockchain, health tech, food tech, all sorts of 4IR technologies.
So they're actively looking for companies in those areas.
That's the picture painted, yes. And the strategic aim is that the money and the content from these spotlights, it all flows back into their main platforms.
You're starting with 4irgpt.com.
Exactly. It's described as a way to generate both revenue and, importantly, relevant content that keeps users engaged within their ecosystem.
Okay, so here's where it starts connecting outwards, right?
Yeah.
The source suggests this is where it gets, quote, really interesting.
Yeah, because it ties this specific platform strategy directly to the much broader, messier reality of global crypto adoption.
And the source commentary gets pretty pointed, especially about Europe.
Very. It talks about potential future challenges, suggesting Europe might face a, quote, big problem if it doesn't, get more proactive with tech change.
And links that directly to low crypto adoption.
Directly, noting Europe doesn't even crack the top 10 countries in the data they present later. It's quite a stark observation.
And this viewpoint on Europe's tech situation leads the source into discussing a very specific outreach.
Right, trying to connect with Joseph Lubin.
A huge name. Co-founder of Ethereum.
Exactly. The source gives background, co-founder with Vitalik Buterin, estimated net worth, somewhere between $1 and $5 billion.
And Ethereum itself.
Yeah.
Massive. Second biggest crypto after Bitcoin, market cap mentioned around $250 billion, though it's been up near $500 billion.
So why reach out to Lubin specifically? The stated motivation in the source is pretty fascinating.
What is it?
It suggests that major players like Ethereum are getting really frustrated.
Frustrated with what?
With the negative side of crypto.
Yeah,
the bad actors, the fraud, the scams.
The VC pump and dumps the source mentions.
Yeah, that perceived short-term thinking. Ethereum, according to the source, is looking for something more substantial.
More substance. Like what?
Like a future powered by blockchain and AI working together. The source really contrasts this, claiming competitors like Solana have, quote, made things worse by focusing on meme coins.
Whereas Ethereum is painted as focusing on the deep tech.
Right, and being seen as more, let's say, reliable by institutional standards. Like Wall Street, the source says.
Okay, but despite that reputation and tech focus, the source identifies a huge problem even for them.
A major hurdle. Difficulty communicating, getting their vision, their tech, across to the wider world, the masses.
And that's cited as a key reason for such low global adoption.
Yes, directly. That figure mentioned less than 6% of humans globally have a crypto wallet. It's tiny, really, when you think about it.
And this loops back to the point about Europe again.
Exactly. The source makes a pretty stark prediction. European citizens becoming gradually poorer relative to the rise in global south.
Specifically naming Asia, Africa, the Middle East.
And it also throws in demographic issues in Europe, falling birth rates, relying on immigration as factors contributing to this potential shift.
Wow, that's a heavy geopolitical take from the source material.
It really is. It emphasizes how these tech shifts, AI, blockchain, crypto, they're not happening in a vacuum. They're tangled up with geopolitics, potentially reshaping, everything.
And it paints a picture of determination mixed with confusion.
Yeah, deep confusion across tech and finance about where things are headed, but also determined players trying to steer it.
So given that whole context, the communication problem, the global shifts, the sources then lay out very specific proposals for Lubin and Ethereum.
Partnering with this 4IR ecosystem, right? And yeah, they're pretty concrete.
Like what?
First, a paid podcast, a BC podcast spotlight on Ethereum, fee mentioned, $50,000.
Okay, Ross.
Adding Ethereum to their AI and Web3 tools database on 4IR GPT.
Makes sense.
Then Ethereum becoming a major video sponsor on 4IR GPT. The source suggests maybe up to 6 spots available.
And the cost.
Monthly fees starting around $30,000 per spot.
Okay. And integration?
Yeah, integrating Ethereum apps and MetaMask directly into 4IR GPT for people to use. Also for a fee, presumably.
Right. And finally, an investment opportunity.
Yep. Inviting Lubin and Ethereum to buy their 4IR token directly. An early investment.
Offering a discount.
A 10% discount, yeah. Using something called an atomic swap.
Okay, atomic swap. For listeners maybe not deep in the crypto weeds, how's the source present that?
It's just mentioned as the mechanism. Basically, a way to trade one crypto for another directly, peer-to-peer, no central exchange needed. So they'd swap Ether or whatever for the 4IR token at that discount.
Got it. And the rationale. Why would Ethereum find this 4IR token attractive, according to the source?
It hinges on its price performance since it launched in September 2023. The claim is it hasn't dropped below its debut price, 0 to 64 cents.
Even with low trading volume?
Yeah, they acknowledge the volume is thin right now, but present that price stability as proof of potential. The argument is basically get in early because as discovery and adoption grow.
The upside could be huge.
Should be exponential, just like Ethereum, is the comparison the source makes.
A bold claim. And the hook for Ethereum specifically, why might they partner or support this token?
2 main points from the source. 1, the token was apparently built mostly on the Ethereum chain itself.
Okay, so native ties, well.
And second, it's described as one of only a few globally regulatory-approved utility tokens.
Regulatory clarity. That's often a big deal in crypto.
Exactly. That's positioned as a key selling point, a reason Ethereum might see it as, a legitimate project worth backing.
It's really interesting how the source weaves the specific platform strategy into these bigger industry challenges and the ambitions of players like Ethereum.
Absolutely, and it really hammers home that point from the source. The current moment in tech and finance, especially crypto and AI, is this weird mix of, profound confusion, but also real determination.
Okay, let's shift gears now and ground this discussion in some data. The sources you shared also dive into where crypto adoption is actually happening around the globe.
Yeah, understanding the where is super important, right? Especially if you're talking growth strategies. But as the sources point out, just making a definitive top 20 list, it's tricky.
Why is that? Different methodologies.
Exactly. Some studies look at grassroots adoption, like regular people using it. Others focus on total transaction volume, which might be skewed by big traders.
Peer-to-peer activity regulation.
Right, or just the percentage of the population that owns any crypto. They all paint slightly different pictures.
So the sources try to synthesize this.
Yeah, they offer a kind of blended top 20 list based on various 2024, 2025 data points. It includes places like India.
Why India?
Huge number of users, lots of grassroots and P2P activity. Then Nigeria.
High ownership percentage there,
Yeah,
right?
percentage ownership. P2P, driven by economic needs. The U.S. is on there, obviously, hub for innovation, investment, volume.
In places known for being crypto-friendly, like the UAE or Singapore.
Yep, they're mentioned for regulation. Also, the Philippines comes up remittances, play-to-earn games being big drivers there. The source actually lists out a full 20 countries in this synthesis.
But the sources also highlight one specific index as being particularly respected.
Right, the Chainalysis 2024 Global Crypto Adoption Index. Its big focus is on that grassroots adoption. Ordinary people.
Which seems key for understanding real-world use beyond just speculation.
Exactly. And it's weighted by something called purchasing power parity per capita.
Okay, PPP per capita. How should listeners understand that term in this context based on the source?
Basically, it tries to level the playing field. It adjusts the rankings to show how significant crypto activity is relative to the average person's wealth in that country.
So, $1 million of crypto activity in a lower-income country counts for more in the ranking than $1 million in a very wealthy country.
Precisely. Because it represents a bigger slice of the economic pie for the individuals there. It helps show where crypto is really making an impact on everyday people, not just big institutions.
Makes sense. So, using that grassroots PPP-weighted method, what does the Chainalysis Top 20 list from September 2024 look like, according to the source?
Okay, the list provided includes India, Nigeria, Indonesia, the United States, Vietnam, Ukraine, Russia, the Philippines, Pakistan, Brazil, Turkey, the UK, Venezuela, Mexico, Argentina, Thailand, Cambodia, Canada, South Korea, and China.
Right. Looking at that Chainalysis data and the broader trends the sources discuss, what are the big takeaways? Where is adoption really booming?
Well, one major thing that jumps out is the dominance of developing nations, especially in certain regions.
Which ones?
Central and Southern Asia and Oceania, the source calls it CSAO, and Sub-Saharan Africa. They feature very heavily.
And the reasons listed in the source for why it's taking off there. They really make sense from a practical standpoint, don't they?
Totally. The sources point to really critical economic drivers, things like currency devaluation.
Where local money is losing value fast.
Exactly. High inflation eating away savings. A huge need for cheaper, faster ways to send money home remittances. Right?
For people working abroad.
And sometimes it's just about getting access to financial services at all if traditional banking is limited or expensive. For many people in these regions, crypto isn't just speculation, it's a tool.
A tool for financial access, even survival.
Pretty much. But even with that developing world dominance in the grassroots index, you still see big economies high up the list.
Like the US, Russia, China, UK.
Yeah, just because of their sheer size. The overall volume of activity and number of users is still massive, even if the per capita impact is different.
And the sources also say adoption isn't uniform even within regions.
Right. There are definite regional hubs where activity is concentrated. CSAO and Latin America are specifically mentioned as examples.
And the reasons people use crypto globally are super diverse.
Absolutely. The sources cover the whole spectrum. Pure speculation, trying to make money, seeking financial stability, hedging against inflation, using it for cheaper, faster cross-border payments.
Or diving into DeFi.
Yeah, accessing decentralized finance tools, lending, borrowing, trading outside the traditional banking system. It's a real mix.
And the sources make that important distinction, right? Between countries that are crypto-friendly and countries with high grassroots adoption.
Crucial distinction. You might see places like Switzerland, Singapore, the UAE topping lists for favorable regulation, good tax laws, government support.
But that doesn't automatically mean average citizens there are using crypto heavily day to day.
Exactly. The adoption drivers might be totally different for someone in, say, Nigeria or Vietnam compared to someone in Zurich. The regulatory environment is one thing, widespread use by ordinary people is another. They don't always line up.
It's definitely a moving target. Dynamic landscape, as the source says. Rankings change.
For sure. So bringing it all together, what's the connection? Well, this adoption data really contextualizes those strategies we talked about earlier.
Understanding where tech adoption is actually happening.
Yeah, it shows where the potential user bases are, where the economic shifts might be occurring, and maybe validates some of the growth strategies aimed at these regions or use cases.
And why should you, listening, care about all this?
Well, understanding these global trends, it just helps make sense of where finance and tech might be heading. It flags potential areas for, personal learning, participation, maybe even opportunity in this evolving landscape.
Definitely food for thought. And as you're thinking about these global shifts, just a reminder that this deep dive is brought to you by blockchaincompany.info.
Sponsored by the 4IR utility token and 4IR GPT.
You can check out the ecosystem at 4irgpt.com and then visit 4irgpt.com to see how you might leverage your own knowledge.
And remember, signing up at 4irgpt.com gets you those 10 free credits the source mentioned.
Right, to start creating those prompts of intelligence, explore building a channel, maybe monetize what you know.
It's positioned as a way for anyone, but maybe especially creators, YouTubers included, to potentially boost revenue and get more visibility.
And while you're thinking about all this, if you could take just a second to click subscribe on our YouTube channel, that would be amazing. Helps us keep doing these deep dives.
So we've covered a lot today guided by these sources. We looked at the strategy of a specific 4IR ecosystem.
Focused on growth, monetization, leveraging AI, and blockchain.
And then we connected that to the really complex, fascinating reality of global crypto adoption trends.
Seeing how different parts of the world are engaging with this tech for really different, often vital reasons, economic, social.
So after hearing all this, what really stands out to you, connecting those platform strategies with the global adoption picture?
And maybe here's a final thought to chew on, building on what the sources presented. If we are potentially seeing this recalibration of global economic power linked to who adopts new tech.
As the sources suggest might be happening.
Yeah. What role could individual action play, like specifically monetizing your own knowledge, participating in these new kinds of decentralized platforms? Could that actually shape this future, both globally and maybe more importantly for you personally?
Interesting question to leave things on. And just one final nod to our sponsors. Thanks again to the 4IR utility token and 4iGPT.
Don't forget 4irtoken.com and 4irgpt.com to sign up. That sign up gets you the 10 free credits.
To start monetizing your knowledge with prompts, presented as a real benefit, especially for creators looking for new avenues.
And the sources also mentioned keeping an eye out for future 4IR credits giveaways.
Yeah, framed as a way to help listeners get, quote, smarter in prompt media engineering, basically learning how to structure and share knowledge effectively in this format.
Right. And one last time, for companies out there in the 4IR space, AI, crypto, blockchain, etc., interested in sponsoring or getting a Spotlight deep dive.
The sources say contact them via the YouTube channel or 4irgpt.com.
Okay. Well, thank you for sharing these sources and walking us through them today.
My pleasure. Thanks for joining the deep dive.